Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob with one of my favorite quotes from a movie from, 20, 30 years ago. It's not whether or not you're paranoid, it's whether you're paranoid enough. And I do feel like that's the world we are getting into with big tech. So this continues my series of stories of basically big tech getting in bed with the military-industrial complex and why having apartheid in your auto signature for your emails might not be the wisest thing when you're using the company systems, right? So people come to me, right? And they're like, Eli, how do I get a job in technology? Not how do you build things in technology or solve, problems in technology, but it's always about how do you get a job. And one of the things I've been talking about for a while now is this whole issue of we have activist employees that are really worried about everything in the world other than ROI for the companies that they work for, and they demand to be able to be paid by the company while they protest and do whatever it is that they're going to do. And I've talked about this for a while where, for 10 years, the most important thing is asses in seats, not actually bringing value to the company. And so we have a lot of people that are essentially paid just to be an ass in a seat, and things are going to get bad for them. Right, so I did this video a while ago talking about Microsoft, and so Microsoft is cracking down on idiocy within the company by using keyword filters for Gaza and Palestine and that type of thing, because people are talking about a whole bunch of stupid crap, literally on the company time, using the company systems, the whole 9 yards. And there's this idea for many, let's not call them tech professionals. They're not tech professionals. There's this idea with many people that have tech jobs, right? Their job title sounds very techy, that they need to be able to protest and scream about whatever the hell it is they want on company time, and the company should just suck it up and deal with it. And as I've been talking to you folks about all the layoffs and the buyouts and every other thing going on in the tech industry right now, I argue this is a bad way to be thinking, right? If you think putting apartheid in your auto signature is going to be good for your career, I don't even want to touch that anymore. And one of the things that we're seeing is that as the economy and the economic kerfuffle gets worse, that a lot of these big tech companies are looking at the military-industrial complex as a way to pad their books, right? If customers, if normal people have less money to spend or are unwilling to spend, if businesses don't know what the hell is going on, because 1 minute tariffs are 0, then they're 145%, then they're 30%, God knows what they're going to be tomorrow, right? If you're a business, you're going to be looking for customers that are actually going to be able to pay the bills. And so in this modern world, right, the military is getting the largest budget it's ever gotten of $1 trillion, right? So your teachers may not be able to pay their mortgages. You may not be able to feed your kids, but by God, our country is going to have tanks and aircraft carriers and all kinds of stuff like that. And so you see big tech really looking at how to cater to this organization, this group that has a tremendous amount of money. And so that's where you see companies such as Meta. So Meta has gotten in bed with Anderol. Anderol is basically a Silicon Valley startup, totally focused on the military establishment. They have everything from submarines to cruise missiles. Anyways, but Meta has teamed up with Anderol to create an extended reality, an XR product for war fighters to go out and kill people, right? That's the reality. Again, you hear about this with Microsoft and the Azure platform, and the Azure platform being used by Israelis' military complex to do what Israel really seems to like to do, right? And so I would argue there's only going to be more and more of this. When I got in the technology world, remember back in 2000, again, I came out of the military. Many of the people in the technology world back then were from the military, from military or government backgrounds, the whole 9 yards. And the culture has simply changed over 2 decades and went from a very, again, people understood military and all that kind of stuff to a world where people don't. I would argue the pendulum is shifting back, and I think a lot of these big tech companies are going to become more comfortable dealing with the military-industrial complex and the military and all that, simply because that's where the money is, as they say. And so that's where we get to AI and AI models, and we have Claude. Claude has come up with models for national security. Claude government models for U.S. national security customers. And so this is where AI directly targets the folks that might be trying to directly target you. I do find this interesting, having come from the military world and the communications background in the military world, is even if you go back 30 years ago, there's this idea that you're always being listened on, right? So we repair electronic equipment. Other people in the military listen to us repairing military equipment. But one of the big issues that came up for the intelligence folks is that they knew how to collect data, right? Collecting data isn't actually that difficult. It costs a lot of money, right? But it's not that difficult. The problem that you run into is how do you turn this massive amount of data into something that's usable? They talk about that with the 9/11 hijackers, where all this information had been collected. If anybody had been able to correlate it properly, they would have understood what was going on. But they could only put the dots together after they saw the event that took place. So it becomes interesting now. If you look at AI being used in the intelligence and the security world, is the idea that they'll be able to unleash AI on these just insane data sets to figure out correlations that may not have been found out before. It's interesting. 15, maybe 20 years ago, NSA built a data center. I do believe it's in Nevada. They spent $8 billion just building the data center. The infrastructure, the servers, all of that was $8 billion. That didn't include the data collection and all that kind of thing, right? They were able to bring all that in. There's a lot of interesting things with things such as collecting encrypted data, which is something to be careful about for all you freedom fighters out there. As I recall with the U.S. laws changed how it was last time I looked. So there's data retention practices. So with intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies, there's an amount of time they're supposed to be allowed to keep data that's collected. One of the interesting things, at least how it used to be, is that clock only starts once the data is in a readable format. So if you have data that's encrypted and the agency is not able to decrypt that data to take a look at it, they can just keep that on their servers until something comes out for them to be able to try to decrypt it and actually see what the hell's in there. So again, for you freedom fighters out there, you little 17-year-olds that want to do whatever in LA or whatever right now, just realize, just because you're using high-level encryption or whatever, things look a lot different if the police show up at your doorstep when you're 35 for something that you did 20 years ago. So to be careful about that. And what becomes interesting, though, is this whole idea of being able to unleash AI on these troves of data. And then what does that look like for our society? When we talk about the Trump administration, a lot of people say I have TDS. Oh, Lordy. Lordy, Trump does make me deranged. If that gives me TDS, fine. Oh, that's what it is. Does health insurance cover it? Anyways, the curious thing is, as you start unleashing AI on these intelligence data sets, and you have an administration that really likes the military complex. Think about this. Take the snark out, take the bombastic out, all of that. Trump has sent the Marines, has deployed the Marines onto U.S. soil, right? Has sent 4,000 National Guard troops against the request of the governor to California. That's pushing some limits, but whatever. But on top of that, has sent 700 active duty Marines to be deployed to L.A. Using ICE to round up 3,000 illegal immigrants a day, the whole 9 yards. This administration is very, very, very willing to use jackbooted stormtroopers in order to get whatever it is. I still not really quite sure it is that he's trying to figure out. So when you have a president like that, who does not believe in the concept of habeas corpus, who is not quite sure whether it's his duty to uphold the Constitution, holy crap, and you unleash AI models into the national security world, the intelligence world, it does become curious what this will mean. And also things like what patterns will be discovered. Think about like speech patterns. They talk about this with AI. So AI systems we had years ago, before LLMs. One of the interesting things out there was something called semantic analysis. And so what semantic analysis is when somebody, when you have two people communicating, when you have somebody communicating, you would have these systems to try to ascertain the emotional state of the people that are speaking. And the idea there is a very easy way to do like a review process for your, let's say, your call center employees, right? If you have one call center employees and the semantic analysis of all their incoming calls shows that the emotion level gets de-escalated, that might be a call center employee you want to promote or give a bonus to. On the other hand, you might have another call center employee at semantic analysis. You see every call that comes in, basically the emotional state gets ramped up. Maybe you want to have a conversation with them, that type of thing. What becomes interesting, so we start looking at patterns, we start thinking about things like semantic analysis. One of the questions that comes up is things such as, what are the speech patterns for terrorists? What words do communists prefer? You may not think about this, but you know, when you sit there and you read, so I read a lot of business books, I read a lot of history books, and your language and the literal words that you use are modeled by the people that you communicate with, basically the communication that you use, who you talk to, what you read, that type of thing. And so certain words may come up more with communists versus capitalists. I mean, think about it right now. Imagine if there was an technology influencer in the world that could not say the word industry properly. Is that right? Industry, right? I mean, you always knew there was something weird about that Eli, the computer guy. He could never say industry right. And that's one of the things you can understand about a communist, right? A communist is so distressed with the idea of the capitalist values that they can't even say a word like industry properly. What could you get flagged on? The whole thing with Blackbox AI now, so we have these AI systems. Basically, there's no explanation for why the AI comes out with the decision that it does. What if you dump just a tremendous amount of communication that occurs between terrorists, right? You pre-tag terrorist talk terrorism. Anyways, right? You dump that, and then you actually train AI models based off of how terrorists talk. And then you do comparisons with communications that you can find to see how closely this person's communication style matches with a terrorist communication style. Oh, you thought things were dystopian yesterday. My friends, this is gonna get so much more dystopian. You're not even creative enough to understand how dystopian this is gonna get. So anyways, Claude. So this is coming from Anthropic. So Anthropic is one of the big AI companies. Claude government models for U.S. national security customers. We're introducing a custom set of Claude government models built exclusively for U.S. national security customers. The models are already deployed by agencies at the highest level of U.S. national security, and access to these models is limited to those who operate operate in such classified environments. Claude Gov models were built based on direct feedback from our government customers to address real-world operational needs and underwent the same rigorous safety testing as all of our Claude models. The result is a set of Claude models that understands our customers' unique national security requirements while maintaining Anthropic's unwavering commitment to safety and responsible AI development. U.S. national security customers may choose to use our AI systems for a wide range of applications, from strategic planning and operational support to intelligence analysis. So Anthropic can now be used specifically by the U.S. government for intelligence analysis and threat assessment. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Could you pronounce industry for me? One more time. Say it into my iPhone. Get on the ground. Say industry, motherfucker. Say industry, motherfucker. You will say industry properly, or I will put two into you. Claude Gov models deliver enhanced performance for critical government needs and specialized tasks. This includes improved handling of classified materials, as the models refuse less when engaging with classified information. Not quite sure what that means. That's a bit of wordplay. Greater understanding of documents and information within the intelligence and defense contexts. Enhanced proficiency in languages and dialects critical to national security operations. Improved understanding and interpretation of complex cybersecurity data for intelligence analysis. This builds on our commitment to bring responsible and safe AI solutions to our U.S. national security customers. This is definitely going to be safe for the U.S. national security customers. If you're a brown person halfway around the world, it might not be so safe for you. Again, it's always fascinating with these AI companies and what they determine safe and not safe. Anywho, with custom models that are built to address the unique needs of classified environments. And so that's where we're at with Anthropic. Literally coming out. This is an announcement on their website. They are proud to work with the U.S. national security apparatus to use AI, to defend somebody. And I think it's going to be curious to see how this moves over the next, 5 or 10 years, to see how technology and big tech starts playing and becoming more embedded with our government. And then as they become more embedded with our government, what does that mean for us as citizens and for people, in the wider world? There's an interesting article right now where the airlines have been selling our information, our travel information, to the government. Right? So normally, if the government wanted specific information, they would have to get a warrant. They would have to be approved by a judge to get that warrant. The thing in the modern world, with all this data being collected, and you have these data brokers, if data can simply be purchased on the open market, why should the government get a warrant for data when they can simply purchase? They're just simply another customer purchasing that data. Imagine as our government just being another customer purchasing that data starts just ingesting everything that we do as people and then runs that against AI models. And look at the AI models and look at the hallucinations that are out there. What happens when people's lives become upended by these hallucinations? One of my arguments with calling this horse crap AI is that it's a problem from a human psychological standpoint, right? When we deal with technology in the real world, there's something called expectations management, making sure our customers, our clients have appropriate expectations for the technology that we're going to deploy. When you call things AI, when you call things that are not artificial intelligence, for some reason this clicks something in the little lizard part of the human brain, and people think that it's intelligent. Not that it's intelligent, but that it's actually smarter than you. Who would argue with an AI? Here's the issue. What happens when you have intelligence operatives that trust AI? What happens when you have leaders and the rest trusting AI? What happens when that AI has a hallucination, has an error? Again, these are errors, right? What happens when it errors? And that's what triggers your arrest, your deportation, your bullet in the head. And then what do they? Well, the AI told us. They've talked about this with computer vision for a long time. So we have biometric facial identification. What's supposed to happen with a lot of these law enforcement organizations is something gets triggered, right? So you have all these cameras up, a face triggers the facial identification thing and says, oh, this is a criminal who has a warrant out for their arrest. One of the issues that we have already seen with our police departments is that what's supposed to happen is that flag comes in and then a human being is supposed to look and actually make sure that face matches the picture of the person that's actually wanted. What we've already seen with our law enforcement organizations is people go, yep, well, what, I'm supposed to argue with facial identification? Obviously, the system is smarter than I am. And we've already seen the rubber stamping there. In a world where the administration is willing to deploy 700 Marines to LA, what happens when people start rubber stamping the responses that AI provides in the intelligence world? I don't know. We're going to find out. What I can tell you is we're going to find out. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Anthropic now being a full-throated supporter of the military-industrial complex? What do you think about them coming up with AI models specifically for U.S. national security customers? What do you think about that in the modern governmental context and how that'll be used? And what do you think about all these people putting apartheid into their auto signatures? Do you see a bright future in the technology world for them? I don't know. Look, I'm just here trying to explain to you folks how to get a job and keep a job and get promoted. Anyways, put your thoughts below. And with that, see y'all later.